What's up, Weirdo Swarm? You are listening to Podagon Infinity, the podcast that opens the door to all things King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. My name is Joe.
And my name is Spenser. Joe, polyrhythms are hard.
Polyrhythms are hard, as you may have noticed from our little teaser reel we put out in anticipation of this discussion. We sat here doing so many takes of that, trying to sync up on that little bit of crumbling castle there, and it's I was going to say it's harder than you think, but no, it's just as hard as you would think, because I think you could tell by this music it is wacky, wild stuff if you're not used to it.
It's not easy, no, and we tried to establish the little drum beat on my keyboard, trying to get that programmed. No dice, so we were kind of running dry, but hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. We still had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah, absolutely. And but here we are at long last. We are finally here to discuss what we have long been avoiding, the most musically progressive and narratively complex album in the discography, Polygondwanaland. And we probably could have tried avoiding it for just a little longer if we really wanted to, but we put the last few albums we have left up to a vote, and the people have spoken. This is what you wanted, so we really hope we are able to live up to your expectations with our deep dive here.
Yeah, we promise to try our best, and that is what we will deliver to you. So before we get into the album itself, we want to, as per usual, get into some listener messages. If you want to send us a message like these fine folks, you can do so on any of our socials at Podagon Infinity. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Blue Sky under that same handle on all of them. And you can also email us, podagoninfinity@gmail.com. Our first message today comes via Instagram, direct message from JT, who says, "Hello, my fellow weirdos. I'm enjoying your podcast and feel more connected to the music and the Gizzard community because of your work. You do the deep dives that help us know so much more about the band and the songs. One thing I would like to touch on is the fans. I discovered Giz in 2018 and have now been to 12 shows, starting with the Mission Ballroom in Denver in 2019. Then I saw them at Red Rocks 8 times and Field of Vision. The people who go to these shows are some of the most laid-back, easygoing, accepting, and genuinely nice people. Every show I feel like I'm part of a family. I've been going to concerts since I was 9 years old. First show was Genesis in 1983, and I've never been in a more comfortable audience who just enjoy the music and each other. Thank you for what you do, and keep on sharing the love, JT." JT, thank you so much for writing in, and if you're a Genesis fan, then you're going to like this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Genesis is one of those bands I gotta check out more of, because I know a handful of songs that I like, but never really dove too deep into them. Thank you, JT, though. That was very nice to hear, and I totally agree with you. I feel very honored and happy to be a part of this cool community, and I always feel that more than anything when I go to shows and go to meetups, especially, where you really get the chance to just kind of mingle and talk to other people who have the same love and excitement for this one thing as you do. It's really cool. So yeah, I totally agree. Wonderful, lovely community of people out there, and you are one of them. Mm-hmm. Our next listener message comes via an email from Bray. "Hi, Joe and Spenser. Love the podcast. Last year, my brother talked me into road tripping from Colorado to Austin, Texas for the Giz Marathon set. Since I hadn't seen them live before that, I was really wondering how it could possibly be worth the drive. Turned out to be one of the best shows I've ever seen, and I was wondering why we were driving back to Colorado instead of following the band for the last few shows of their tour. Since then, I've been to 4 more shows, and now I'm traveling to Europe for the first time in my life. I'll be attending a rave set and an orchestra set in the Netherlands, then rave sets in Berlin, Prague, and Vienna. I've never been to a rave before. It's gonna be wild." Before listening to episode 36 of the podcast, I had no idea about the hidden tracks on the Silver Chord. I'm really hoping they play Embryo. That track is sick. My number one wish is Gandhi. A song I hope they Nathanize is See Me. I think that could be a good one. Since you guys are running out of studio albums to cover, you should start to mix in more bootleg live albums. In any case, I hope you guys keep the episodes coming. And they finished off, most importantly, with a Go Birds from Bray.
Go Birds, baby.
Go Birds. Thank you, Bray. Wow, yeah, there's a lot to cover in here. I'm glad you enjoyed your show. I'm so lucky you got to travel across the pond and hit all those Europe shows. I guess you sent this message before those shows happened, and now at the point that we're recording this now, all the rave sets are done, and all of the Europe tour is done now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're totally done,
and
then
Australia
the next is
month.
just them heading back to their homeland for some shows. But wow, that is awesome. I don't think at any point they played See Me, but that would be pretty hype. I think we might have touched on that one a bit before as well. And no Gandhi either. Obviously, we heard that before. That was one you touched on in your last little mini episode. So, yeah, unfortunately, you didn't get either of those, but there is plenty of other sick stuff, and I'm sure you had an absolute hell of a time anyway.
That's right, yeah. So, Bray, thank you again for writing in. Bray actually wrote in another message that I read on the mini-sode, so those of you who have not heard the mini-sode yet, Bray also chimes in there. That was a fun one to record solo, but as we continue on our messages here...
Oh, yeah, by the way, I meant to say... Nice work on your little mini episode there, Spenser.
Thank you.
It's not that often that we, have a solo episode. Obviously, I've done it once when I was doing my interview episode, and you did it once before as well, doing a solo episode. Sometimes our schedules are just really hard to line up, and we don't want to push back too many weeks with nothing coming out. So one of us will just kind of do a little side thing. But yeah, nice work. And if you haven't heard that already, go back and check that out. Spenser did a great job in the last episode going over all things of the Rave Tour so far, and answered some listener messages regarding that, and from some people who went to the shows as well, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm. We wrap up our listener messages this week by reading an email from Peter from Sweden, who's written in a couple times before. Peter says, "Hey guys, so grateful for you spending so much time in the last pod episode discussing my ideas. I loved it. It also gave me some new thoughts and insights about those fantastic albums and songs. By the way, while I was hunting for the tracks on the Silver Accord that are only available on vinyl, totally agree, those songs are amazing, I came across a live recording of a never-released rap song, Torture Chamber. It's just awesome." And Peter provides the link here. "Do you know anything about it? Could it be one of the tracks from the unreleased rap album? All the best from Sweden, Peter." Peter, to answer your question, I have heard of it, and I know it's gotten some teases and quotes in some of the rave sets on the recently concluded Rave Tour. I'm ashamed to admit, though, I've never listened to that full thing through. I'm going to do that as soon as we've wrapped things up here recording for the day. That's going to be on my to-do list. And there apparently was that scrapped rap album that is never released and may never see the light of day for all we know. It could be one of those little pieces of never-released lore, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard this particular version of it that you sent here from this particular performance, but I have heard Ambrose repeating those lines, "Torture Chamber, what's the combination?" I've heard him say that multiple times while they're kind of jamming out during, I want to say either Set or Gilgamesh, one of the other tracks with rapping in it, where he just kind of goes off doing that. He'll also touch on the Beastie Boys intergalactic lines, like another dimension, another dimension. And I honestly, for whatever reason, never dug into it much. I either thought Torture Chamber was another song that already existed that he was just kind of having fun with, like the Beastie Boys thing, or if it was just kind of his own lyrics that he made up, or if it was part of a unreleased song from the mysterious, possible, elusive, never-released rap album thing. So I don't know, but it's really cool, and I'm still crossing my fingers for that one day.
All right, thank you again to all for those listener messages. Let's jump right into the topic at hand today now. Polygondwanaland released November 17th of 2017, and actually the day we're recording this, that anniversary is just 4 days past now, that 8-year anniversary, so very fresh off of that. Let's start off the discussion of the background of this album by getting into the name very quickly. It's a portmanteau of the words polygon, of course, a multi-sided figure. Gizverse tie-in, of course, with Nonagon.
Right,
being
Nonagon
a
is a polygon, yeah.
And Gondwanaland, also known as Gondwana, which was a supercontinent that's believed to have existed over about 600 million years ago after Pangea, which I think more of the general public is aware of Pangea.
Yeah.
But Gondwanaland's similar.
Pangea was the supercontinent where it was all of the land on Earth was all connected, and Gondwana came in an era a little bit later. Actually, it was starting to split into two separate continents known as Gondwana in the south, and Laurasia was the northern chunk of land up there. So Laurasia was made up of North America, Europe, and most of Asia, whereas Gondwana was made up of modern-day everything else. The Antarctica, South America, Africa, India, I believe, actually. It was separate from the rest of Asia, and Australia, of course.
This has been your Podagon Infinity history lesson.
That's right.
A little bit more of that to come later on, actually, as we get deeper into the album. This album, by the way, came out in such an illustrious year, of course, for King Gizzard. 2017, that was one of the 2 5-album calendar years. This was the 4th of those 5 albums this year, preceded by Flying Microtonal Banana, Murder of the Universe, and Sketches, and then, of course, Gumboot Soup followed.
Absolutely insane that they already had 3 full-length LPs out that year, and then later in November, they dropped this, their most complex progressive album yet, and they still weren't done. There was still one more, at the very end of the year with the release of Gumboot was the very last one, but goddamn, I wish I got into Giz sooner so I could have experienced the madness that was 2017 for myself. I
know, right? I mean, there was also 2022, but it's totally separate discussion.
that was more kind of in the time when I was starting to really get into them, and I'm like, I kept checking back in, like kind of slowly digging into more of their music. I'm like, wait, I never saw this one before. It's another new one, and then like 2 weeks later, Wait, there's another one.
Another one?
That October was just absolute chaos, yeah.
Giztober, baby. There are all kinds of background bits we can get into on this album, but one of the more notable pieces of info on Poly is that the band released all master recordings for digital, CD, and vinyl to the public for free under public domain. So basically, along with the album artwork as well, so basically people were free to make copies, remaster, remix, etc., and sell these and profit off them for themselves. The band just said, it's all yours, do what you like with it, and there have been some pretty cool like fan remixes and stuff. There are a couple we can plug later on, but a lot of people have taken the creative directions in pretty cool ways.
Yeah, you even have, so I recently purchased a copy of the album, and it's just kind of the regular standard one directly from them that I picked up at a record store, but you have a kind of a different pressing of this album. You bought the one from Fuzz Coffee Club, is that what it's called?
Fuzz Coffee, yep.
Yeah, Fuzz Coffees, and it's just kind of a unique take on the album cover with some different colors, and the pressing itself is this cool, like, bright orange. I think they call it, like lava something.
I think it's just lava, actually.
Or the lava record, whatever they call it. Yeah. So that one's super cool. The even the regular pressing that I have that I just picked up is really cool. It's like 4 quarters of 4 different colors. I think that's kind of the standard one that they released themselves. So on top of anyone being able to make their own pressing, they also still put some out themselves. But I don't know, maybe over time I'll have to collect more variations of this album.
Special shout out, by the way, to Giz creator Obicogs, who has put out Super Poly 64, kind of doing a Super Mario 64 sound font for this album. And also they very recently dropped Polywave, kind of a synth wavy version of
vaporwave kind of take on it. Yeah.
I listened to it at work the other day. Pretty cool.
Yeah, really unique. He does really unique, cool stuff. Like, he doesn't just, I'm going to release my own, cool looking pressing of the album like a lot of people have, and nothing wrong with that. Kudos to everyone who's been able to come up with really cool artwork or different kind of pressing styles and stuff. But Obicogs, who his name's Alex, he was one of the people I interviewed at the Philly meetup ahead of the shows before. So if you haven't listened to that, you can hear him talk a little bit about his work with his bootlegs and stuff. But I also have one from him. It's a small 7-inch record, like a single, that is a mashup of all of the Polygondwanaland songs mixed together into one long track, basically. So that's just another example of some of the really unique stuff that he does and that just people do in general with this album. So yeah, shout out to him for sure.
Another one I want to plug real quick because we've exchanged messages with him a couple of times. Shout out to Jim Farros, a.k.a. Lasagna Passenger Media, who made the remix Shattered, Shifted, and Rebuilt, cut/blended/faded remix.
I remember listening to that one a while back, maybe a year ago or something. I feel like you might have sent that to me or vice versa, and I remember checking that one out.
That is cool stuff. So just a couple of examples of just the innumerable different remixes and redoings of this album that people have made.
Yeah. One major thing about this album, probably the most standout thing that I need to touch on, is that it is very progressive throughout. It has many moments in the songs where different instruments are playing in different time signatures at the same time, creating this disorienting yet dazzling and impressive sonic landscape. I don't normally get too in the weeds on technical music theory stuff on the show because, frankly, I don't think I'm qualified, and I'm not sure it's always the most interesting for everyone listening, but for this one, I at least took note of the different odd time signatures used on each song, and I will touch on those the best I can as we go through them.
Yeah, this is obviously the band's proggiest album. It has kind of that gold star on it, most jazzy, most metal, most proggy. There are kind of those different categories that some of the band's albums occupy. This is by far the proggiest. There are definite influences, whether intentional or not, from the band, from bands like King Crimson, Jethro Tull, if you're looking at older bands, maybe even a touch of Rush in there. More on the modern side, some definite Tool influence, I think, as well. A couple other notes I want to kind of rush through real quick, so we want to get to the track by track. I feel like this album represents a transition point in the band's sound. They're kind of leaving the noisy Giz era behind around this point, 2017. Nonagon was perhaps the last full album of that sound.
Yeah.
There are going to be small moments after in the years to come for sure, but overall, cleaner, tighter production becomes more the norm for Giz around this time.
Yeah, I think that goes for all the albums that came out in 2017. Like, everything kind of has this tighter production, but really intricate too. Lots of layers of different instruments. This album, they also started playing around a lot more with synthesizers as well. There is a heavy use of synth on the album, but there's a really nice kind of mix of different instruments and styles going in here. Obviously, the main one being prog rock, but there's also a little touches of metal even in some of the heavier sections, and even some folkiness with a lot of acoustic guitar and flute as well. And on top of the flute, there's another interesting instrument that I don't know we've ever seen on an album before, and that is the glass marimba. I think that's a first for the band on this album. Specifically, according to the album credits, it's only in the first track in Crumbling Castle, and as we go through that song, we'll kind of point out where that is, but pretty interesting there, and that seems to be, that's credited to both Stu and Cavs playing that. A couple other quick little things related to the album credits. I was reading through the notes in the copy of the record that I have, because sometimes that's the only place, or at least the easiest place to find that information if you own the album itself. So, we discussed before how Lukey isn't always recording the bass parts, and more often it's a combination of Stu, Joey, or even Cookie. Here, apparently he played bass on just the last song, The Fourth Color, and he played some synth as well on track 7, which is Horology, but otherwise most of the bass was Stu and some from Joey as well. Interestingly, Cavs is credited as playing drums on tracks 1 through 8, which leaves out the final 2 tracks. Eric was also in the band at this time, of course, their other drummer for a long time, but Eric is only credited as management on the album. It just says tracks 1 through 10, management. And Stu and Joey have some percussion credits on songs as well, but who the hell is playing drums on the last 2 songs? I'm so confused. I don't know if this is like a typo or a mistake, but I'm reading it right from the album, so what the fuck, man?
Okay, so for track 10, at least, The Fourth Color, Joey is credited with percussion. So there are definitely some gaps, as you were getting at, in like who's credited with what.
Yeah.
And I found it also maybe depends partially on what source you're going to, because I also saw somewhere else where, forgive me for forgetting, but I saw somewhere else also where Eric was actually credited with drums also from throughout the album, but the source he went to did not. And I think I'm seeing this on the Wikipedia page, actually, but it just depends on where you go, and that's so odd, the inconsistencies.
But my source was literally the liner notes of the album I have, and like I said, the copy of the record that I own is straight from Flightless. It's not like a fan bootleg pressing or anything either, to where, it might be more likely for someone to make a typo or something. It's directly from them, so both Searching and Fourth Color have there's percussion on, like you said, Joey, and I think I said Stu as well is credited with some percussion in some spots.
Yeah.
But percussion and drums are 2 different things in the album credits.
Technically,
so the drums are a mystery. I mean, I'm going to have to just go with, they're actually shredding on those, especially the Fourth Color at the end, so I have to think that it's Cavs or a combo of him and Eric, like a lot of the songs, but I don't know. We got to move on. I'll be stuck here forever.
I want to talk a little bit about the album artwork, of course. This is one of the most intricately detailed pieces of album artwork in Giz history, and there are so many different Easter eggs and reference points as to the little bits of references to songs and lyrics that you can find. The cover art almost looks like it's part board game, part video game cover image, is the best kind of overarching way I can describe it. But in it, you'll find various lyrical passages. Certainly, the song titles are kind of organized into groups of 3, which hints at the fact that they're kind of divided into trilogies that this album is. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the artwork alone.
That's one thing right there that I never realized before until starting my research on this album, is that it is kind of broken up into 3 chapters or 3 suites, similarly to how Murder of the Universe is as well. And of course, we haven't done our album discussion on that album yet, but I assume if you're listening to this, you're familiar enough with that record as well. That album, though, is much more obvious. It has these very, very obvious breaks and stops and like where the narration picks up and whatnot. Poly, I feel like, still flows as a single album, but it's kind of more like, instead of 3 separate stories like Murder of the Universe is, it's more like 3 chapters of the same book in a way. Like it's 3 sections to the same overall main story. But so to come back to the album cover with that, you see sort of the songs listed in groups where they go together. So towards the left side, you see Inner Cell, Loyalty, and Horology, with the words Horology 1, 2, and 3 corresponding under them to signal these are each 3 parts of that chapter or whatever. And then over to the right, you see Tetrachromacy, Searching, and The Fourth Color, and those are kind of numbered as well. And weirdly, the Tetrachromacy says 1, Searching says 2, which would make Fourth Color 3, but where it says The Fourth Color, it just has question marks. But then there's a blue 3 above it that kind of has like water running down and kind of like points back to it in a weird way. Lots of really trippy abstract stuff going on here. Also, as you were saying, there's some like lyrics for different songs kind of scrolling around. There's a lot of little tiny details. I have some of the smaller details I'll touch on in particular songs because they connect back to some of the lyrics later on. So I'll just leave it at that for now. But you could spend a lot of time staring at this album cover for a good hour or so and find new things.
For sure. Okay, we have a lot to get to, obviously, on this epic album of King Gizzard, Polygondwanaland. Let's jump into track number 1, Crumbling Castle.
I see through the bricks to the sea, crumbling castle. Waters rising up, thick and green, crumbling castle. Inching closer each century, crumbling castle. Are we safe in our citadel?
It would be hard to argue that this isn't the best opening track in the entire Giz discography. It pulls you in right away with the iconic polyrhythmic play between the percussion and single note strikes on the bass, followed shortly thereafter by the little teases of electric guitar before getting right into the first verse and not keeping you waiting long for the song to really begin.
Yeah, and there are several different sections of the song that one might be able to subdivide the song into, that introductory instrumental piece and the chorus, etc., etc. But there are so much more complexities going on here than I think you might realize at first listen, and certainly upon first listen a few years back when I first got into the band, I didn't think this was the most complex song until I started learning some more bits of, music theory and how this band in particular constructs songs. But there is so much going on, and it really is this song that I think establishes the prog stereotype or blanket description of this album, because it's 10 plus minutes long. Of course, people are going to roll their eyes and be like, of course, okay, prog, it's going to be about something fantastical. It's going to be 10 plus minutes long. Yep. It's going to be hard to digest, and make no mistake, there is a lot of that on this album.
They're hitting all the markers, yeah.
But I think this does set a little bit of false expectation, not for the quality of song, because this is an excellent song, but I think this automatically makes people think, okay, this album is going to be full of stuff like this. Not a lot of long tracks after this one. This is really the big fish here at the beginning.
That's true. They start things off with the longest track on the album, 10 minutes and 44 seconds. It feels like the type of song that could easily serve as an epic closer with how big and fantastic it is, but no, they put their biggest song right here at the very top of the record. But honestly, though, this song never feels that long to me. Like, when I was first taking my notes and going through it, off the top of my head, it felt to me like this song was maybe like 7 or 8 minutes long, which is still a pretty long song. But I think the reason for that is all the different sections it goes through make it feel really fresh and like it's always moving forward, and it by no means is at all static or too repetitive, in my opinion.
No, not at all. There's enough variety in there to keep the listener interested, and there are plenty of hooky moments too. Like that. That's another thing that I think pegs prog rock down quite a bit for most people, is that there are not enough hooks for more the average listener to cling on to. That's not the case here on Crumbling Castle. There's the main melody, do 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 do, and then there are the growlier parts from Stu later on. Want to be. We might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but there's so much to latch on to, is my bottom line here. And sure enough, this has become not only one of the probably, if you were to break down like people's top favorite songs in all the Giz discography, which I think we have to do on this show in one form or another someday.
Yeah.
It might be a steep task, but we got to do it, I think. Not only that, but it's also become a live favorite. Any ballpark guesses, Joe, on where this one falls?
Oh,
here you go.
Dude,
give me your best guess.
A lot. How many times it's been played live total?
Yes.
I don't know, like 200.
Not quite, actually. You would think 160, though.
Oh, okay, I was not that far off.
That is tops on Polygondwanaland, and the band averages once every 4 shows performing this song. So in the main rotation.
Yeah, I mean, it's been getting a lot of play recently with all the orchestral stuff, because they did that at every orchestral show, and that was what I wanted more than anything else, was to hear that with the orchestra. And man, we were blessed to get that. I have heard this song one other time live, though, and that was my first ever Giz show back in October of 22. They played this live and The Fourth Color, I believe, back to back, which is a pretty common thing that they do, and it is really great the way that the opening and closing track actually can flow really nicely into each other for playing live. But unfortunately, at the time of seeing them live, I really only had a handful of their albums that I was familiar with yet, and this was not one of them. I had not heard this album yet, so when I heard those songs live, I had no idea how special that was, and I was just, it went very underappreciated at the time, but I've since gone back and listened to it and been like, oh my god, I can't, like, now knowing all the music, I'm like, I cannot believe some of the songs they played at that show. I had no idea what I was hearing.
So you just mentioned a minute ago the performance at the orchestral show when we were there in Philly. I had my buddies Brad and TJ with me, who you met briefly, and I remember specifically that Brad turned to me at one point when they were performing this song, and he said, close enough. Welcome back, King Crimson. and as I was saying in the intro to this album, there are so many of those older prog influences across this album, and you can sort of parse that out as this song gets deeper and deeper. Giz fans listening in, you already know what this song consists of, and the hooks earlier in the song, I guess. I want to point out a couple of the really interesting quirks that set this song apart. 7 minutes and 33 seconds into the song. That's not a phrase you're going to say very, very many times.
Yeah.
7:33 into this song. You get a false ending, and then that low rolling synth. That's a motif that's going to recur throughout the album. A guitar squeal, another Stu chorus. It builds and builds, and then Noisy Giz, which I just claimed was kind of left in the past.
Yeah.
It makes a little cameo appearance
here.
It
rears its head a couple times on this album. Yeah. Even though that sounds not the bulk of it. But yeah.
No, you get some wailing harmonica from Ambrose, that distorted and reverb-soaked guitar. It's like a wink right back to the Nonagon/Mindfuzz era.
Yeah.
So this song, despite only being track 1, it gives you a taste of so many different sides of the band.
Mm-hmm. As I said, I wanted to touch on some of the time signatures of the music as we go through the track list. Fortunately, to help me out with that, I came across a post on the subreddit from around the time that the album first released of someone who already did the work for me. So thanks to user JFMusicKC for plotting this all out 8 years ago. This song starts in 7/8, and the first verse stays in that time signature. But then the little guitar break 43 seconds in is just in 4/4. But then when the drums and everything else kick back in, they are playing in 5/4, and that continues on for a bit. we get a return to 7/8 at 3 minutes 12 seconds. This is just ridiculous. When the music returns to that intro section and it kind of stays there for a long time. The verse section that starts at 4 minutes 16 seconds, the person from this Reddit post said that they were counting it in 21/8, which is just bonkers, but it lines up if you count along to it. It feels right, but it still kind of has that 7/8 feel in a way, but when you count it, 21/8 is kind of more sort of what feels natural to count along to. So yeah, we're starting off with the most batshit time signature madness on this song. None of the other ones come even close to how crazy this one is. There was a little bit of wackiness later, but this is the wildest.
I'm now kicking myself because when we were preparing to figure out, in approaching this album discussion and putting our reel together, what song are we going to play? We're just like, oh, Crumbling Castle, of course, it's hooky and whatever. We didn't even think about the different time signatures and the complexity with the polyrhythms. Oh my God.
Luckily we only played enough of it to where it stayed in that 5/4 for the whole chunk that we played, but it could have been way worse if we tried to squeeze more in there.
Oh boy.
Continuing with some standout musical moments before we dive into the lyrics and what's going on in the song here. I want to point out a few sections. There is some cool percussion polyrhythms happening starting at the 6 minute 16 second mark, and that timestamp is also where we finally get to hear that glass marimba that I mentioned earlier. It sounds so nice in combination with the flute there, and it gets you into this nice little peaceful respite in the track before it gets loud and wild once again. I also love the parts with the build-up that leads back into each verse where the drums are banging on the snare and get faster and faster, like the da 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 da. You know what I'm talking about. The first one of these happens at about the 4 minute 8 second mark, and I believe it does it just one more time a little later on as well. I think I have to say, though, if I can pick a favorite moment in the whole song, I believe it's going to be at 7 minutes 35 seconds when there's almost sort of that false ending that we talked about, but then you get that pulsing synth loop and the vocals come back in with the chorus. I see through the bricks to the sea, crumbling castle. And then, he finishes that up and then just boom, there's a crazy ass drum fill, and then they are shredding in double time this time around. So the drums are going double time, and it just gives you this extra boost of dopamine. Like it's just such a rush, such a hit.
I see through the bricks to the sea, crumbling castle, inching closer each century, crumbling castle. Waters rising up, big and green, crumbling castle.
And I look forward to that every time I listen to it. I think I'd have to put that as my favorite little moment of the whole thing.
Okay, yeah. So I was gonna state my favorite part, and I thought you were gonna list the moment that I'm about to mention is approximately the final minute of the song, a section I like to call Doom Castle when referring to it myself. It's just a snarl of epic proportions to close. I want to be. It's just so drawn out and elongated. And when we heard that part of the song at the orchestral show in Philly, just so evil sounding and so dark. Oh my God, that was great.
Yeah, when they did it live with the orchestra, and first of all, that was the first time they ever played the outro section live. Normally they just end the song right before that. But this time was the debut of them playing the outro, but they didn't just play the outro. Cavs continues, he plays the drums, everyone else, all the other band guys just totally stop and do nothing, and the orchestra is emulating those vocals. And I remember like grabbing my head like this, like just putting my head through my, like almost like pulling my hair out. Like I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. My face was fucking melting off of my skull during that moment. Was probably one of one of the best just single live moments seeing them so far. Holy shit.
I was just imagining Jack Black from School of Rock. What's happening to my face? I think you melted it.
Yeah, if anything did it, it was that. Goddamn.
Let's dive in a little bit now to the lyrical side of Crumbling Castle. This part of the narrative, for all intents and purposes, sort of stands on its own little island on the album. And it's not to say has no relation to any of the other songs or the trilogies that remain here. It is, fully connected, but it is not part of any trilogy. It's almost like, I developed this theory in my head, almost like if you're watching a movie or a TV show where, the first episode of the first minute, you're thrust right into like this high stakes scene or high stakes moment, just kind of roping you in. And then after that, it's like, okay, here's how we got to this point.
Yeah.
It's just a
you're
different way of
probably wondering how I
sequencing.
ended up in this place.
Exactly like that. It's kind of a different creative way of sequencing. And I really kind of like that arrangement and sequencing choice to put the song first.
There's some weird stuff regarding the narrative throughout the whole album to where I feel like this song isn't necessarily the very beginning of the story. It's almost like it comes later, or like things maybe loop back around in a weird way. I'll kind of touch on that more later, but it's kind of weird. It's not like a super straight ahead, this is the beginning of the story. Like, you are just thrust into chaos, like you said. So to set the scene a little bit, this song takes place at a dilapidated old castle on a coastline surrounded by horrible storms and rising thick green waters around it. Our glassy-eyed, blind and divine speaker is this sort of all-knowing being who describes the destruction that is coming to their castle, but hints at the possibilities of a better life existing somewhere else, or like some other land they could maybe escape to. In verse 1, the castle is a pimple on the face of our orb. That's kind of like saying, this place is nothing in the vastness of the entire Earth. This is just a little speck on the planet, and that there's so much more out there.
And an ugly speck at that.
Yes, and an ugly speck. It's a mess. So, there's more opportunities. There's more out there, that could provide a better life for me or for all of the people here. The water's being described as thick and green. I did read some people speculating that could be a reference to the vomit from Murder of the Universe, like thick and green would describe vomit typically. So that's a possible callback to that. I don't know if it's super connected within the two stories of the albums, or if it's just kind of a little hint, or maybe not even intended at all. But the ending track of Murder of the Universe, the title track, does have the one line from Hantayumi in there: castles crumble in landslides and I munch the rubble. So there's kind of a two-way reference to each other there between Murder of the Universe and Crumbling Castle. So kind of do what you will with that information, I guess.
Yeah, and this is some of the deep lore that we were kind of nervous about about addressing here on the show, because we had kicked this can of talking about Polygondwanaland and Murder of the Universe. We'd kicked that so far down the road. Nervous about doing it all justice, and I think we're well on our way to doing that here. Just the fact that the two albums are connected in some way. We have at least a little bit of a handle on specifics. Kudos to that person who made that post that you just stated. Yeah,
there's a lot. This is part of the whole thing that is the Gizverse, right? Of like, there's these different albums that kind of have interconnected themes and references, and people sort of put them all together as being like all parts of a whole. Especially these two albums, there's a lot of references to each other in ways that they could connect, or in ways where actual certain characters could kind of crossover between the two of them. Like, oh, this person could be this person from the other album. We'll maybe touch on a little bit more of that later, but it does give us a bit of a headache trying to like piece that all together. I feel like, the classic image of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the red strings all over the board, and he's like, his eyes are bugging the fuck out, and like I feel like that. So, it's absolute madness. So we're going to try not to lose our minds over that, but let's just stick to the concrete info that we have for the most part. Some other lyrics to touch on. We wait for the death, it does not come. There is constant threat of death from the ravaging that their castle and land is taking from the water and these storms or vomit, whatever it is. But it hasn't happened yet. It's just like this constant threat torturing everyone. They are so ready for it that they've already prepared graves and said their last rites. They're like, just kill us already. Like, this is absolute torture. At 3 minutes 29 seconds, this verse always stood out to me for some reason. I really like the flow of the words and just how it sounds, but it also introduces a new idea. The sounds of the constant lightning would be enough to block out the thought of the end of the world if it weren't for our tinnitus from the bomb. What bomb? I mean, I get the idea of the fear of the world ending and the constant loud lightning, but what bomb? I mean, also, just a little aside, for those who don't know, tinnitus is that ear condition where you hear ringing in your ears, and usually it's caused by someone having regular exposure to loud noises. It's not too uncommon for musicians to get it as they get older and whatnot. So it makes kind of sense that a bomb exploding could be enough to cause people to have some hearing damage and whatnot, but the idea of a bomb happening at some point in the past of this world is an interesting idea, and something that's never referenced again. Is just, from the bomb. You guys remember the bomb?
Yeah, it's like that record scratch, or it's like that meme of the girl from like the 1950s ad. The what?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of this whole other thing that kind of adds to this sort of post-apocalyptic feeling of this land.
Yeah.
And I actually saw someone write there was an annotation on Genius when going through the lyrics on that website that someone wrote, "It may be a huge stretch, but it could be referring to the nuclear post-apocalyptic world described in Flying Microtonal Banana." So maybe some nuclear fusion going on here. Maybe that's connected as well. I really don't know.
Nuclear fusion. It could be. I didn't have that on my bingo card. FMB being part of the whole like Gizverse interconnected story.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like they said, it could be a stretch, but I mean, we're trying to find some meaning and origin to this bomb, this purported bomb.
Yeah, the bomb. You know, Spencer, the bomb. One final thing I just want to point out with the lyrics here that stood out to me, 4 minutes and 16 seconds, is where the lyrics begin to sound as if they are coming from the perspective of the castle itself, as if it's alive and feeling. In the wind I sway back and forth, I'm brittle as an aged human being. The castle does not want to crumble. Then, after this verse, we get the word Polygondwanaland sung very slowly and stretched out as well. The Polygondwanaland. I, for the longest time, never even noticed that's what they were saying there.
Me either.
But that's kind of like, it's kind of being... well, first of all, it's the first mention of the name of the album in itself, so that's kind of cool that you're getting that in part of the first track, but it's also hinting at the next song, and it's also just in general hinting at the idea of this other land that maybe is a refuge for everyone to escape to.
Okay, so terrific job, Joe, kind of summing up the narrative of that song alone. Can you believe we're only one track into the 10?
Oh, boy. Yep. I knew it was going to be like this, that Crumbling Castle was going to take up a good chunk at the top here.
Mm-hmm. Shorter songs ahead, dear listener, do not worry. But before we move on to the next track, I want to mention quickly, this is the only song on the album that has a music video that goes with it.
Right.
Made by Jason Galea. It is the only song on the album with a video and is a collection of colorful analog effects. The best way I can describe it is it looks almost as if you're viewing a malfunctioning old CRT TV screen where the colors just kind of like making weird shapes and there are lines and the shapes are shifting. It probably looks cool if you're stoned. Otherwise, if you're watching it stone cold sober, you're kind of looking at it like, okay, interesting.
Yeah,
weird.
Just trying to make something out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So creative by Jason Galea nonetheless. Maybe check this one out if you're a little bit zooted. Might not be the worst move. Anyway.
All right, thank you, Spencer, for not forgetting about the music videos. I almost do every single time, so I normally just let you take the reins on that. Anyway, that's enough of Crumbling Castle. Let's move on to a much shorter and hopefully easier to get through track here. Track 2, the title track, Polygondwanaland.
So we've arrived at the title track, Polygondwanaland, here on track 2 of the album, featuring vocals by both Stu and Joey, which it is worth mentioning that for essentially this whole album, the two are kind of tag teaming the vocals. It's almost, for the most part, almost exclusively Joey in the left ear, Stu in the right ear, if you have both sides of your headphones on. And it's a new and very unique approach for the band. And at the time, this is really where Joey starts taking on an increased vocal load for the band, because prior to this, and most of the years prior, most of the albums prior, Joey maybe got one song where he would sing lead, or he would get a couple of songs where he would sing some backing vocals. Here, 2017 is where Joey's starting to gain a lot bigger of a role within the band, at least vocally, and his almost whisper register just lends this really cool touch to this, by contrast to the rollicking opening track. Polygondwanaland is this chill, kind of folky sounding tune that help set the stage further for the adventure that we're about to kind of see our protagonist embark upon, and in a way, we, the listener, are embarking upon as well.
That's right, and contrast was the exact word I wanted to use at the top here, with how much lighter and gentler this song is in comparison to the craziness that was Crumbling Castle. This song also feels like it takes a more positive approach in its lyrics and storytelling, with its hopeful words of finding and arriving at this mystical-sounding land known as Polygondwanaland. Also, acoustic guitar leads the majority of the melody, which gives it this kind of lighter and very folky feel, while still being quite intricate with its polyrhythms and time signature changes as well, and I'll just go ahead and touch on that right now. This one is in 5/4, just like a decent bit of Crumbling Castle was, although this time it seems to stick to just that one time signature as far as I could tell, so a lot easier to count to and figure out on track 2.
I like the creative approach in which Stu wrote this song, with the alternating singing of Polygon and Gondwanaland between the other lyrics. Goodbye, kinsman, Polygon, I'm going abroad, Gondwanaland, and so on. Just those interspersed like sections of the word Polygondwanaland just split up like that. It's so cool.
Really unique,
Yeah, and then you get this cool melody to it as the verse develops and eventually gets into that pre-chorus that I'm not even going to sing lyrics to. It's just that da, 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 da. It creates this like suspense and mystery.
Yeah. Another moment of the song that I really love is the little instrumental break that comes in at 2 minutes 31 seconds. There's the flute and acoustic guitar that are playing in sync together really nicely. Just has this very bright, nice, like happy, folky feel to it, but you still have the drums and bass kind of grooving along in a sort of polyrhythmic way that keeps it still kind of progressive, kind of intricate, while being like pretty and nice and being like a nice little break moment where you're just like, ooh, yeah, do. Just feels nice.
I actually had that same passage highlighted in my notes here, and I literally used the words "flute brightens things up" in about a 30-second instrumental break. It really does brighten things up, brightens the mood, along with the lyrics, which you did refer to earlier when we began this song discussion. The lyrics are just kind of have this sense of adventure. It's positive. There's not really a whole lot of worry at this point.
Yeah.
Goodbye, kinsman, I'm going abroad. I'm skipping over the Polygon and Gondwanaland parts here. Goodbye, kinsman, I'm going abroad. Drift until I get to my stop. Grand and have never been seen by man veil of a dream. That's going to that pre-chorus part. But then the chorus, we're going to get there. We don't need a whereabouts. We're going to get there. Follow where the river runs. So it's really just this kind of a follow wherever the water takes you.
Yeah.
You don't need a map. You don't need to know where this place is. Nature is just going to take you there.
Yeah. They're feeling very glass half full about it, of like, just follow the river, just keep on cruising. I know it's there. I know it's real. We're going to get there. Just that repetition over and over again. So a very positive outlook about their adventure to the mystical, mysterious Polygondwanaland.
Mm-hmm. There is a slight hint at a shift in the mentality, maybe a little bit later in the song, although the instrumental nature of it doesn't change much, if at all. The lyric, can I see the eye that sees me? Please show me these. There's that feeling of being watched, whether it's by a fellow person or by a higher being. It's not clear, but there is kind of that like under the surface awareness of, okay, I'm probably being watched. Somebody probably knows I'm making this journey. I'm not gonna, scoot into this magical land untouched. I acknowledge that. Another little instrumental touch that will also recur throughout the duration of the album is at 3 minutes and 22 seconds. I refer to this on our Changes episode, but there's this sound that I referred to at the time, I think, as kind of a Doppler effect of a race car speeding by. It's this as if it were played by a synthesizer, which of course it is in this case, and we'll hear that in a few different forms and pitches elsewhere on the album. But it's just like this seemingly randomly occurring flourish that just kind of forms a through line, along with some of the melodies that take on slightly transformed versions of one another. In fact, there is one from this song that we're going to get to a couple tracks from now.
We're going to get there.
Polygondwanaland.
Can't help it.
We are going to get there, I promise, and we're actually going to get to track number 3 right now, which is The Castle in the Air.
The river opened her mouth and spat into a vast sea, larger and bluer than a cloudless sky. Muscular, prodigious, immortal.
The Castle in the Air. This is the shortest track on the album at 2 minutes and 48 seconds. So like we said, the Crumbling Castle really does not set up the proper expectation for the rest of these songs, because there's a good chunk of them, a good half of them, that float around this 3 minute mark and not much longer. So this is the shortest though, at 2:48, like I said. Begins with more acoustic guitar and synth as well, which are a really cool and interesting combo together. They do that a lot, and I really like that weird blend of like the more futuristic electronic sound and then like a classic folky just acoustic guitar together is really interesting. Overall, I feel like it kind of maintains that same chill and positive tone of the previous track. It's pretty light in its overall sound, but the actual lyrics and what's happening are maybe a little bit more ambiguous as to whether this is really positive or not. It's kind of, well, we'll get there. We're going to get there.
We're going to get there, Polygondwanaland.
Well, we're going to get there. But anyway, a couple other things I just want to touch on in general about the track before we look at the lyrics and some specific music moments. To talk time signatures again, this one is in 6/8, and as far as I can tell, it just stays there for the whole thing. So not too bad, not too horribly crazy of an odd time signature to dissect. And the biggest thing that makes this track stand out is the return of Leah Sr., giving some narration just like she did on much of Murder of the Universe. So really cool little cameo, after Murder of the Universe coming out first and people becoming familiar with her on that album, having this little drop where she just pops in again. It's like, oh, cool, they're, throwing a little narration our way. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. She has this soft, soothing voice, and I just want to state her credits briefly here. In her own right, a solid musician. She's been active for about a decade now. She's an Australian folk singer, and just like I said, just has that soothing, relaxing voice, perfect for narration. You do have to listen pretty closely to make out what exactly she's saying, because there is that drum beat.
Yeah, it's not like super loud in the mix, maybe, but I will say I got the pleasure of seeing her live the first Giz show I ever went to. She was the opening act playing her own music with her band, and then she came out on stage to do some of her narration parts from some Murder of the Universe songs. Unfortunately, didn't play this one live, and I don't think this one has never been played live, has it?
Oh, it has.
Oh, it has.
62 times, actually.
Okay, never mind. Forgive me. I don't know. That's why you handled those stats and not me. But at least when I saw them, she didn't do this song, but I got to hear her narrate some MOTU stuff, which is cool.
That's very cool. And actually, I just came to this realization. It is the anniversary of the last performance of this song live, November 21st, 2019.
Whoa. Today's the six years since it's been played?
Yeah, in Shanghai, China.
Oh, wait, what? Wow.
Yeah, so bye-bye Shanghai. We left this song in Shanghai, apparently.
They did. They left it there. It became a butterfly and flew away. We'll never see that song again.
Oh, this one low-key needs a bust out, though, now that we're getting to it.
Yeah, I would love that.
To refer back quickly here, as we said, we're going to tie things in where we can to some of the album artwork. If you look very closely at the bottom right-hand corner of the album art, what looks like a blue wedge, and in truth, I think it's actually a river, but there's some text on that, and that is, in full, Leah's narration part on this song.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the whole entire thing is written out in the corner.
Yeah, the river opened her mouth and spat into a vast sea, larger and bluer than a cloudless sky. Muscular, prodigious, immortal. But our vessel was invulnerable. It was well built. The boat rocked me into sleep, and I floated through a deep dream, smooth sailing through the castle in the air.
It's actually pronounced Vast Sea.
Oh, Vast Sea. Sorry, yeah, I can't pretend to do the Australian accent and pretend it sounds great from an American.
It's embarrassing when we try to do it. We're not going to try to do that.
Nah.
That's a nice little connection to the previous song because we had that repetition of follow where the river runs, and now the river has led these travelers on their boat out into a massive open ocean as they continue their journey.
Yeah, basically here the narrator's projecting this idealized image of this faraway land, Polygondwanaland, and it's quite literally, I think, in a dream state here. Yeah. The kind of swaying boat in the river rocks the protagonist
Leah describes
to sleep.
them kind of being rocked to sleep by the waves and all that. Yeah, and then this is the rest of the lyrics that are described are kind of what they're seeing and what they're imagining about this land in their dream.
And there are some interesting images that crop up in this dream. After Leah finishes her narration, the guys come back in singing, "One-eyed people living peaceful with monopods and a stomy, without malice or guile, without covetousness." Okay, buckle the fuck up. Here's where all the vocab words
I was going to say,
coming.
this is the beginning of your vocab lesson, folks. I think there's multiple different reasons why this is going to be a pretty educational episode, actually. We had a history lesson earlier. Maybe more of those to come, more vocab for sure later on.
So there really only is one word that I picked out vocab-wise from this song, though, and it's one that I just read, astomi, which in Greek and Roman mythology, astomi are people who didn't need food or drink to survive, and instead they survived by smelling pleasant aromas, which came from carrying fruits along with them wherever they went, or sometimes flowers or perfumes. So really just these crazy mystical beings, like I said, who didn't need food or drink.
Yeah, this is some new Greek mythology that I never knew about before. And also, all three of those things that are described there are different Greek mythological creatures. So one-eyed people is the Cyclops, which most people are familiar with the idea of that. Monopods is another one as well. That's actually another Greek mythology being as well that I didn't know about. They were these mythical dwarf-like creatures with one giant leg coming out of the center of their torso, hence the name monopod. And astomi, you already touched on about them. So yeah, just kind of these quick three references to these mythological creatures, three things that aren't real, don't really exist, but they're the first things he sees in this land in his dream.
Yeah, so as I refer to these odd, interesting images that the lyrics contain, it's nonetheless still containing sort of a positive, hopeful message. We're in this cool place. Things look a little bit different, but hey, this is chill. This is cool. We can get along with these people, or these beings. The lyrics continue, and there's men whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders, which is also depicted on the album artwork.
Yeah, you can see these sort of creatures that have faces right under their torso, so those would be the men whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders. They're on the very far right. Actually, if you look just to the right of the red number 1 on the right side, you can see them. And there are also some depictions of the one-eyed people as well on the left side, I believe it is. Do you see it on there, Spencer?
I see
he's
it now,
looking at the album cover on his computer screen now. Yeah, there's the one-eyed people as well. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Jason included these, and they're very small. You really got to get like a high quality image of the album cover and zoom in, but they're there. But yeah, as you said, the very second line is living peaceful without covetousness, without, all this stuff. So even though they're kind of strange or kind of unfamiliar beings, they're by all means very peaceful creatures living in harmony with no negativity, no covetousness, as he says, no greed or anything like that. It's a very peaceful, happy society they've got going on. There's a section a little later in the song where the sort of mindset seems to turn a little more negative, particularly these two lines, "spread our teaching, alleviate their damnation," is really odd because at first he's just observing these creatures, everything's peaceful and good, okay, great, but this guy cannot help but want to kind of indoctrinate them with his own beliefs, their own human beliefs, almost in like a religious kind of way, like as if this is a religious group of some kind, or you could even compare them in the real world to like colonizers of some sort coming to a foreign land and sort of wanting to make things their way, spread their religion, spread their beliefs, and kind of take over. So there's kind of this negative little edge there where you're like, oh, maybe he's not so good intentioned about going to this place.
Oh, da 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 da. The evil man.
Yeah.
It's the evil man.
Oh my God.
He's back.
Eyes Like the
Gizver's
Sky
confirmed. Holy shit.
No one ever talks about how Eyes Like the Sky is actually part of the Gizverse, and it's not just an old American West story. It's Gizverse.
That just came to my head as you were going through that. I'm glad
I saw you making a face while I was talking. Yeah.
I'm glad you highlighted that line, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just about to wrap up the discussion, at least lyrically, of this song, before you kind of gave me the notice, hey, I got something else here. But it kind of continues in that direction, the song does lyrically.
Yeah.
That things are not what they expected or dreamed at first, because the final paragraph or so of lyrics reads, "Could it be faithful? Couldn't seem more real. As I opened my eyes, the dream decolorized till it was obscured, and the harsh reality hit me like salty water." And I just wanted to sing those last couple of words because I like the delivery. And things start to go a little batshit at the tail end of this track, because you hear Cavs and or Eric on the right cymbal.
Yeah,
just like
really
things are
fast.
picking up and things are changing, and it's like, uh-oh.
It's literally like an alarm going off, waking this guy up. Like,
Exactly.
Uh-oh, something bad might be coming. Maybe this place isn't what you think it is.
Something wicked this way comes.
Yeah. And I could almost, like, when he says that last line, harsh reality hit him like salty water, you could really picture like a splash of ocean water coming up over the side of the ship, startling him awake, and be like, what the fuck? And then an alarm starts going off.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe things aren't as peaceful and lovely as he dreamed about, but there's only one way to find out. And that is to go into track number 4, Deserted Dunes, Welcome Weary Feet.
For a song title that implies something relaxing and somewhat of a refuge, Deserted Dunes, Welcome Weary Feet, it almost sounds like a come, traveler, and rest your weary feet. You almost feel like it's going to be almost a lullaby type of song. Quite the opposite, though, as that batshit kind of, as I mentioned, the right cymbal, that speeding up, that continues, and the instrumentation, before we get into the lyrics, kind of continues. The bass jumps in, and then there's what sounds like the strum of electric guitar strings above the nut.
Yeah.
It's like that little
high-pitched,
tinny, high-pitched thing.
Yeah, I didn't even make a note of that, but hearing you say that, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, that sound in the song there.
I wonder if that is truly what that is, but already, from the moment that last track transitions into this one, there's this feeling of panic and feeling caught off guard. I want to go backwards just a little bit here in terms of the structure of how we talk about songs. Talk about some lyrics right off the cuff here. Deserted dunes, welcome weary feet. Feel euphoric, Polygondwanaland, and so novel. And I should note that Polygondwanaland is sung in full here rather than the word being split like it was on the title track. So a change there, and not only that, this song feels like a sped up, panicked version of the title track. It keeps that same melody, but it's just sped up. Dun, 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 dun. It's like they're trying to keep up with this ever-changing scenery and feeling freaked out. It's like it's like distorted, or I shouldn't say distorted. What was previous was distortion, the dream of this idealized land, but now they're actually in it. And the melody's kept similar. It's changed an octave, and it's just like, oh, okay, this is different. Yeah. Very different.
Then that super fast tempo and the way the guitar and bass are shredding and everything, and even just from the beginning with that little ride cymbal fast transition into this track, it all kind of gives you the feeling of both excitement and anxiety as they are getting into this place of we don't really know what we're getting into here. This might not be what we dreamed of here. Literally, not what I dreamed of. Mm-hmm. And there's also pretty prominent electric guitar here. There's a lot of acoustic as well, once again, but pretty prominent electric guitar that plays along with the bass, that do 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 do. So that just adds to the energy of it. It's a pretty rockin' ass song, actually. And then kind of in contrast, the verses with the way that Stu delivers those lyrics is kind of the soft and whispery and like kind of mysterious, like deserted dunes welcome weary feet. feet. But yeah, either way, it is chaotic. And you mentioned as well the repetition of Polygondwanaland in between the verse lines and stuff like that. Just, there's a lot going on here right at the top. It throws you right into it.
Another little quirk of this song, the way in which the word dinosaurs is sung. It's full of dinosaurs. It's almost like they're going, what the hell?
Yeah, they're like shaking as they say it, dinosaurs.
There is a dinosaur, by the way, on the album cover as the references to the album art continue. That was on the far right, similar to the beings with the face beneath their chest or beneath their head, whatever the lyric was.
Yeah, right near the men's whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders.
That's the line.
Yeah, it's near him. There's like actually what looks like some burning like dead trees, and the dinosaur is walking underneath of those. So that's another. Look past the dying trees.
Look past the dying trees beyond waterless seas. Oh my God. We need our own little yarn board, our own bulletin board.
Yeah, I'm literally feeling like full on Psycho Charlie here. Oh my God.
You read my mind there.
I saw your face contorting about to say that. Yeah.
God.
Before I forget, I do need to touch on the time signature of this one as well. This one is in 7/8, just like a good chunk of Crumbling Castle was. I think this is another one where it kind of sticks to that the whole time, at least as far as as close as I got to analyzing it and determining all that, and with the help of that post that I mentioned earlier, figuring out the time signatures. About a minute in, there's this interesting section where there's this little instrumental turnaround that happens before it gets into the next verse, and it's really soft and gentle. There's the flute and what I think is Mellotron playing along with it. It feels like flute and Mellotron together, because there is Mellotron in the album credits as well. And then it goes back to so it's just really cool. There's like this peaceful, very hopeful sounding little moment that kind of happens here and there.
And I wonder if it's not so much, there's a glimmer of hope ahead. I'm wondering if that's actually hope melting into the background.
Melting away, yeah. The hope dying. Another cool section, about 2 minutes in, everything stops except for some bubbling layers of synths. And then shortly after that, the drums and this nice little groovy bass line join in this section, and it continues grooving along for pretty much the whole remainder of the song, and it's just this cool little instrumental moment.
Yeah, there's something very trippy about that kind of outro instrumental section. There's that underlying synth layer, like slightly different texture and attack on that particular synth loop. It almost sounds like something the band would be doing on Nathan nowadays. That it almost sounds like something that could be backing up Grim Reaper or something when Ambrose comes to center stage.
Totally.
But man, this one's a real shot of energy here on track 4, and it really brings this whole Polygondwanaland trilogy to a rollicking close. Just so well sequenced, this album.
Just to point out another interesting lyric, some interesting use of alliteration that I really like. Nervous natives watch pompous pilgrims. So the native people or creatures or whatever they are that live in this land nervously watch as these travelers come into their land, their home, because they don't know what their intentions are. But these quote-unquote pilgrims seem to be a bit on the nervous side as well, as the lyrics continue. Foreign nature, eerie jungle, our bodies are tasty morsels. And of course those lyrics have the, Polygondwanaland repeated in between them. And then the repetition of "it's full of dinosaurs" after that once again. So I think the natives should have nothing to worry about, because the dinos will maybe take care of these intruders. No problem if they start acting up. Maybe, I don't know. That's never explicitly said. Like, it's never said in the song that they're like killed by the creatures that live there, or eaten by dinosaurs, anything like that. But just kind of a speculation of like, there's a little bit of nerves on both sides of the things here, because they're unfamiliar with each other and their intentions.
Anytime I come across the word dinosaurs out in the world now, I won't not read it in my mind as dinosaurs.
Yeah, dinosaurs. But as you mentioned, this is the kind of end of the Polygondwanaland suite or chapter of the album. And yeah, it's kind of, you said that Crumbling Castle kind of stands on its own earlier, maybe isn't necessarily part of this, maybe is like its own thing. And then these last 3 tracks were the Polygondwanaland suite or chapter. I don't know. How do you kind of look at that?
See, I that's how I tend to lean, like that Crumbling Castle kind of stands on its own, but still does nonetheless sort of tie in. And it's not like Crumbling Castle was just kind of this totally separate project, just kind of slapped onto the beginning of this otherwise like interconnected sort of chronologically organized album. It's like I said, it's just my loose theory here is that it was kind of an attention grabber at the beginning, and then they take the story backwards. Okay, you might be wondering how I got here.
Right. Okay.
This is how we got to this point.
Okay, sounds good. I could live with that. Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of our Polygondwanaland album discussion. Part 2 will be available for you next week on the show. As always, keep it weird, and we'll see you later, Gators.
Like strumming that little section of guitar strings above the nut on the fretboard.
Oh, I shouldn't be playing this while you're talking.
That's okay.